Welcome back to the Deep Dive. It is great to have you with us again.
Great to be here.
Today, we are looking at a topic that, at first glance, feels like it belongs in a hard science fiction novel.
Or maybe a graduate seminar on theoretical astrophysics.
Exactly. But as we started peeling back the layers on this one, we realized it's actually grounded in a very specific, very intense analysis of religious law.
It really is a fascinating collision of two worlds. Usually when we talk about space travel, we're talking about, the engineering side of things.
Right, propulsion systems, life support.
The specific impulse of rockets, or maybe the economics of mining asteroids. We rarely stop to ask if our spiritual software is actually compatible with the hardware of the universe.
And that's really the hook for today. We have this grand vision of the future, right? You see it everywhere.
Mars colonization, interstellar travel.
The whole Elon Musk Star Trek dream.
Yeah.
We sort of collectively assume that humanity will just pack its bags, hop on a starship, and set up shop on Red Planet or beyond.
We just assume it's a matter of technology.
But today's deep dive is a massive record scratch moment for that dream.
A major record scratch. And it's not coming from a physicist saying, we don't have the fuel.
And it's not coming from an economist saying it's too expensive.
No.
We are looking at a specific proposal, a very detailed paper that argues that for roughly a quarter of the world's population, specifically Muslims, leaving Earth might be logically impossible.
And not impossible because they can't afford the ticket.
No, we mean impossible because the act of leaving Earth might actually signify the collapse of the faith itself.
That is the core conflict we are unpacking today. It is where faith meets the laws of physics.
And the document we're looking at is titled, Muslims Cannot Travel to Other Planets or Outer Space: The Full Scope of the Impossibility of Space Migration Theory, Where Faith and the Laws of Physics Collide.
Even the title is heavy.
Doesn't pull any punches. It's not asking a question. It's making a statement.
It's completely unequivocal. The proposer isn't suggesting it's difficult to go to space.
No.
They are arguing that it is a fundamental contradiction.
So the mission for us today is to really unpack this shocking hypothesis.
Yeah.
We aren't just talking about packing bags.
We are unpacking the argument that venturing into space signifies the collapse of the Islamic faith because its rituals are inextricably tied to Earth.
It's a bold claim.
Oh.
So what is the roadmap here? How does the proposer build this case? Because I imagine you can't just say don't go without some serious evidence.
It's a systematic dismantling of the space dream, point by point. The proposer covers the direction of prayer in 3D space, which is way more complicated than it sounds.
Okay.
They look at the problem of relativity and time. How do you fast when time itself is warping?
Right.
Then they look at purity rituals, and finally they tackle the definition of humanity itself.
So we are going from geometry to Einstein to ontology.
We are. And it gets really interesting when you realize just how specific the arguments are. It's not just space is scary.
It's space breaks the rules. 3-second pause.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start with the first major hurdle the proposal identifies. It's something that seems simple on the surface, something I think most people are vaguely aware of, the Qibla.
Right, the Qibla. For those who might not know the term, strictly speaking, this is the absolute coordinate for a Muslim. It is the religious obligation to face the Kaaba in Mecca, Saudi Arabia, during the 5 daily prayers.
That's a lot.
The Salat, yes.
And on Earth, this is pretty standard stuff. You check into a hotel room in London or Jakarta, you pull out a compass.
Or nowadays, you just use an app on your phone.
Exactly. It tells you which way is Mecca, you face that way, and you pray. It's a 2D problem.
Precisely. On Earth, it is a 2-dimensional azimuth. It's degrees from north. You are on the surface of a sphere. Mecca is on the surface of the same sphere.
So you just draw a line across the surface.
It's what we call the Great Circle Route. Simple geometry. But the proposal argues that the moment a spacecraft leaves Earth, the Qibla stops being a 2D line and becomes a 3D vector. And that is where the chaos begins.
That's where it all falls apart.
I love how the proposer phrases this as 3D vector incalculability. It sounds like a problem from a high-level physics exam.
Yeah.
But walk us through the actual logistics here. Why is space so different from, say, flying in an airplane?
People pray on airplanes all the time.
Right.
It comes down to the frame of reference and the sheer speed involved. The proposal brings up this issue of hypervelocity.
Okay.
If we are talking about real space migration, interstellar travel, or even rapid transit to Mars, we are talking about ships moving at near light speeds, or at least a significant percentage of it.
Or even just orbiting Earth.
Even just standard orbital mechanics where you're moving at, what, 17,000 miles per hour?
So you're moving fast, much faster than a Boeing 747.
Incredibly fast. And you aren't just moving across the surface of the Earth, you are moving away from it, or orbiting it, or traveling between planets.
Right.
The proposer points out that if a ship is cruising at these hypervelocities, its relative position to Earth is changing constantly.
So let's try to visualize this. Imagine you start your prayer. You've located Earth in the window. You've pinpointed Mecca on the globe. It's, say, in front of you. You start the prayer.
Right. But the prayer takes several minutes. In those few minutes, because of your speed and trajectory, Earth has moved relative to you. The spacecraft has moved. So Mecca, which was in front of you when you said Allahu Akbar to start the prayer, might be behind you or below you by the time you finish.
That is wild to visualize. You'd essentially have to be on a rotating platform.
Spinning around mid-prayer just to keep your lock on the target.
Like a radar dish tracking a missile.
And even that might not be enough. The proposer argues it renders the physical act of facing Mecca completely impossible.
So it's not just hard, it's geometrically incoherent.
Exactly. Imagine trying to keep a laser pointer fixed on a Pacific coin in New York City while you are in a jet fighter doing barrel rolls over the Pacific. The angles are changing too fast for the human body to adjust to while maintaining the solemnity of prayer.
It effectively turns the prayer into a gymnastics exercise.
It does. And the proposer argues that the ritual demands stability. It demands a fixed point. When the fixed point becomes a hypervelocity projectile relative to your position,
The connection is broken.
the connection is broken.
And that's just the travel phase. What happens when we actually get there? Let's say we survive the trip, we land on Mars, we build the habitat. I'm standing on solid ground. Surely I could just look up, find Earth in the sky,
It's that bright blue star.
and pray towards it. That seems solvable?
You would think so. That feels intuitive because we are used to looking up at things. But the proposal calls this the planetary rotation issue.
Right, because Mars is rotating on its own axis.
And Earth is orbiting the sun at a different speed. Everything is in motion.
So to stay facing Mecca, you aren't just turning left to right like you do on Earth.
No, you would have to tilt your body in sync with the planet's rotation. And the proposer paints this very vivid picture. There will be times when Earth is effectively on the other side of the planet you are standing on.
So Earth is beneath your feet, essentially, through the planet.
Yes. So to face Mecca, you would have to prostrate yourself facing the ground towards the planet's core.
Which sounds like normal prayer, right? You put your forehead on the ground. That's the posture.
Visually, yes. But spiritually, the proposal argues this creates a massive conflict. The physical act of sajda, or prostration, is explicitly about placing one's forehead upon the earth in submission to God.
Okay.
But if you are doing that to face a Mecca that is effectively through the floor, on the other side of the planet, you are technically prostrating to the core of an alien world.
I see the distinction. You're bowing to the planet Mars to get to Mecca.
Exactly. The proposer argues this undermines the spiritual and physical meaning of the ritual. You are no longer grounded in the sacred geography. You are orienting yourself toward the center of a rock that has no holiness.
The vector goes through the alien soil.
And the proposer argues that this invalidates the intention of the direction.
It really highlights how Earth-centric the geometry of the ritual is. It assumes a flat or at least spherical surface where down is just gravity and forward is a direction across the horizon.
Right.
But once forward becomes up into the sky or down through the crust, the geometry just breaks.
That is the proposer's main point here. The ritual wasn't designed for a 3D vector space where the target is a moving celestial body. It was optimized for a stable life on Earth.
Remove that sphere, and the logic dissolves.
It dissolves completely. 3-second pause.
Now, I know what you're thinking. And I know what I would think if I were trying to solve this problem.
Right.
If I can't face the real Mecca because it's a moving target millions of miles away, why not just bring Mecca with me?
It's the classic sci-fi solution. You see this in books all the time.
Totally.
Just take a piece of the Kaaba, or a digitally certified projection, or a document that says, this spot on the ship is legally Mecca. Problem solved, right?
Exactly. It seems practical. We digitize everything else. Why not digitize the Qibla? Or just create a prayer room on the ship and say, for the purposes of this voyage, This wall is north.
Well, the proposer anticipates this argument and absolutely destroys it. They dedicate a whole section to what they call the logical verification of this idea.
And what's the verdict?
They don't mince words. They call this religious deception and sophistry.
Sophistry, that's a strong word. That basically means using clever but false arguments to trick people.
It is.
Why are they so against it? It seems like a logical workaround.
It comes down to the definition of sanctity. The proposer argues that the Kaaba's holiness isn't just symbolic. It isn't just a logo or an idea or a state of mind.
It's more than that.
Its holiness resides in, I'm quoting here, specific spatial and historical coordinates.
Ah, so it's the actual location. The latitude and longitude on Earth, the physical spot where history happened.
Yes, it is the place where Abraham built it. It is the place Allah designated. You cannot just copy and paste that sanctity.
So what's the risk?
The proposal argues that transferring that sanctity to a document or a certificate inside a spaceship is a variation of shirk.
Shirk. That is the concept of idolatry, right?
Yes, and in Islam, it is the most abhorred practice. It is the sin of associating partners with God.
Okay.
The proposer argues that if you designate a manufactured object, like a piece of paper or a stone on a ship, as the Qibla, you are deifying an object for human convenience.
So you're making a false idol.
You are literally making a false idol to pray to just so you can go to space.
That is a fascinating connection.
Yeah.
So by trying to make space travel halal or permissible, you actually end up committing the worst sin in the book.
According to this proposal, yes. You're inventing a new holy site.
A substitute Kaaba.
A substitute Kaaba. And the proposer asks a very pointed rhetorical question. If you can create a substitute Kaaba in space, why can't you do it on Earth?
Right. Why not just have a certified Mecca in New York or Tokyo to save on airfare?
Exactly. Why do millions of people travel to Saudi Arabia if we can just certify a spot in London?
If you break the link to the physical coordinates, the whole system collapses. It becomes arbitrary.
That is the proposer's verdict. If this were permitted, it would lead to the complete collapse of Islam's ritual system. So the compromise is actually a trap.
It opens the door to dismantling the religion entirely.
It does.
But surely there's some wiggle room. I know Islamic law has flexibility. What about rukhsa?
Good question. Rukhsa is a legal principle meaning simplification or leniency.
Like what?
It's used for things like if you are sick, you can pray sitting down, or if you are traveling, you can shorten your prayers. It is a well-established part of Islamic jurisprudence.
So wouldn't space travel count as traveling? Could you use rukhsa to say, look, we're in space, let's just do our best?
The proposer says absolutely not. And the distinction they draw is really important.
What's the distinction?
They argue that rukhsa is intended solely for temporary emergencies on Earth. You're sick, but you'll get better. You're traveling, but you'll come home.
But space migration isn't temporary.
Exactly. If we are talking about colonizing Mars, we are talking about generations of people living there permanently. The proposal argues that applying a temporary emergency rule to a permanent lifestyle is arrogant.
So they see it as humans trying to redesign religion to suit their own ambition.
Yes. They're calling it an attempt to rewrite God's command. The text says it is an arrogant attempt to ignore God-ordained physical constraints.
So if you say, we will live on Mars forever, so we will permanently change the prayer rules, you are effectively creating a new religion.
You aren't practicing Islam anymore. You're practicing Martian Islam, which has different rules.
That is a very hard line to draw. It basically says the rules are the rules, and if the environment doesn't fit the rules, you don't change the rules, you change your environment.
Meaning you stay on Earth.
Correct. The environment of space is incompatible with the law, therefore the law prohibits entering that environment.
The proposer is saying that the limitations of the law are actually guidance on where human beings are supposed to live. 3-second pause.
So we've established that we don't know where to look when we pray, and we can't just invent a new direction.
Right.
But the proposal says it gets worse. We might not even know when to pray.
And this is where we run into Einstein. The proposal has a section titled The Trap of Relativity Theory.
This is where the physics gets really mind-bending.
It does.
We're talking about time dilation, right?
No.
The faster you go, the slower time moves for you relative to someone standing still.
Correct. The special theory of relativity. As an observer's velocity approaches the speed of light, their time slows down. The proposer calls this the Urashima effect.
Urashima. What's that?
It's a reference to the Japanese folktale about a fisherman, or a Shimataro, who goes to an undersea palace for a few days.
And returns to find centuries have passed on land.
Exactly. It's a perfect metaphor for relativistic travel.
So if you were on a ship traveling at near light speed, your clock is ticking slower than the clock back on Earth. Why does that break the ritual?
Because the ritual is legally defined by Earth time. The proposal quotes the Quran, chapter 4, verse 103. Prayer is prescribed for the believers at specific times.
Specific times, that's the key part.
It is. And those times aren't arbitrary clock times like 5:00 p.m. They are defined by the sun's altitude based on Earth's rotation.
Dawn, noon, afternoon.
Fajr, Dur, Asr, Maghrib, and Isha. These are astronomical events observed from the surface of the Earth.
But in space.
In space, there is no noon. If you are in deep space, there is no sunrise. If you are in a star system without Earth's sun, the proposer states there is no legal basis whatsoever to fulfill the command.
You have lost the definition of time itself.
Completely.
I can see how that would be a problem. If the instruction manual says do X when the sun is at Y position, and you are in a place with no sun and no Y position,
You literally cannot follow the instructions.
so you're totally out of sync.
You are. Do you pray every few hours based on your ship's internal clock? But your internal clock is moving slower than Earth's. By the time you pray noon, 10 years might have passed on Earth.
It effectively divorces you from the rhythm of the religion. The prayer is supposed to be a daily rhythm, but daily loses its meaning when the day itself disappears.
And that syncing issue must be even bigger for things like Ramadan.
Oh, Ramadan is the ultimate headache here. This is the month of fasting.
Yes. The start and end of fasting are determined by the visual sighting of the new moon, Hilal.
So if you're light years away.
Now imagine you are light years away.
All right, I see where this is going.
Yeah.
Information can only travel at the speed of light.
Exactly. Even if you wanted to follow Earth's calendar at near light speeds or vast distances, there is a massive transmission lag. You literally cannot know the current lunar phase on Earth in real time.
So the Muslims on Earth might be celebrating Eid, the end of the fast, the big celebration, and you wouldn't know about it for 4 years.
Right. The proposal calls this the transmission lag. The result is that religious synchrony is physically severed.
Wow.
You cannot fast in unity with the Ummah, the global community, if you are chronologically disconnected.
That's actually quite a lonely image. Drifting through the void, totally out of sync with the spiritual heartbeat of your people back home.
You're isolated not just in space, but in time.
You're living in their future, or their past, depending on how you look at it.
It reinforces the proposer's idea that the faith is designed for a specific context. A community on Earth sharing the same sun and moon. Take that away, and the practice just falls apart.
You become a splinter group, drifting in the dark.
Unable to participate in the collective consciousness of the faith.
And practically speaking, if you are traveling near the speed of light, you might only experience a few weeks of travel time while decades pass on Earth.
Right.
So you could leave during Ramadan and arrive at your destination 50 years later, having missed 50 Ramadans.
Precisely. The proposer argues this creates a chaotic gap in religious observance that cannot be reconciled. The legal framework assumes a unified flow of time.
And relativity breaks that unity.
It does. Therefore, engaging in travel that breaks that unity is prohibited. 3-second pause.
Okay, so far we've covered direction and time. These are big abstract concepts, but the proposal goes even deeper. It gets into the nitty-gritty of daily life, specifically purity.
This is the ritual of tahara. Before a Muslim prays, they must perform wudu ablution with water.
You wash your face, arms, feet. It's a requirement. You cannot pray if you aren't in a state of purity.
It's the gateway to the prayer.
And water in space is, well, it's recycled.
It is extremely precious and extremely recycled. On a spacecraft, we're talking about a closed-loop system.
Right.
You drink water, you sweat and urinate, the ship captures that moisture, filters it, and you drink it again. This is standard operating procedure for NASA and the ISS.
I know astronauts do this on the ISS today. It's perfectly safe scientifically. It's pure H2O.
It's arguably cleaner than the tap water in most cities.
Scientifically, yes. But the proposal asks, is it ritually pure?
Ah.
The text debates whether something that was once waste urine and sweat can ever truly be used for ritual purification, even if it's been filtered.
The ick factor meets religious law.
Exactly. In Islamic jurisprudence, there are strict rules about najis, impure substances. If water is contaminated with urine, it is usually considered unfit for wudu.
So even if science says the urine is gone.
The proposal suggests that relying on this recycled filth creates a constant state of doubt. Can you truly purify yourself with water that was passing through your kidneys an hour ago?
But let's say you run out of water, or you just don't want to use the recycled stuff because of that doubt. On Earth, Islam has a backup plan.
It's called tayammum.
Right. If you can't find water, you can use clean soil or sand to symbolically purify yourself. You strike your hands on the dust and wipe your face.
It's a mercy, a way to keep praying even in a desert.
Okay, so just use space dust, just grab a handful of Mars dirt.
The proposal says no. This is the alien soil issue.
Of course there's an alien soil issue. Why can't we use Mars dirt? Dirt is dirt, isn't it?
The argument is that tayammum requires pure earth, the soil of Earth. The proposer argues that regolith, the soil on other planets, has a fundamentally different composition.
It isn't the Earth envisioned by the Quran.
It lacks the biological history, the connection to the creation of Adam.
Wait, so the chemical composition matters?
According to the proposal, yes. Martian soil is regolith, it's sharp, it's full of toxic perchlorates, it has never supported life.
So it cannot be considered the pure earth required for the ritual. It is alien matter.
So you can't use the water because it's recycled pee, and you can't use the sand because it's Mars dirt, not Earth dirt.
You are stuck in a state of permanent ritual impurity.
Which means your prayers are invalid.
You are technically dirty in the eyes of the law with no way to get clean. You are trapped in a box where purity is physically impossible to achieve.
That feels like a trap. Every door you try to open is locked.
And that leads to the deepest and honestly the most existential point of the entire proposal. It's what they call the ontological constraint.
Ontology. The study of being. Who are we?
The proposer quotes the Quran, chapter 20, verse 55. It says, "We created you from the earth, and to it we shall return you, and from it we shall bring you forth once more."
From the earth. It's very specific.
The proposer argues this isn't just poetic. It is a definition of the human being. The Muslim life cycle is irreversibly tied to planet Earth.
You are created from its soil.
Yes. And the part about, "To it we shall return you."
That's the burial. When a Muslim dies, they must be buried in the earth, facing Mecca.
The proposal paints a very bleak picture of the alternative. It says that being buried in the cold soil of another planet is a deviation from the eschatological process of resurrection.
Eschatological meaning the end times, the afterlife.
Yes. The argument is that resurrection being brought forth once more is tied to the earth you were created from.
So if you died on Mars,
Buried in alien regolith, light years from Mecca, you are physically and spiritually disconnected from the cycle of creation and return.
wow, that is heavy. It's essentially saying that if you leave Earth, you are stepping out of the cycle of salvation.
You are stepping out of the definition of what it means to be a human under God's law. You are becoming something else, something that the religion doesn't have a category for.
An anomaly.
An anomaly. It's almost like the proposer saying, God created humans for Earth. If you leave Earth, you are trying to be something other than what God created.
Precisely. It's a boundary condition. It's saying that humanity isn't just a biological species that can go anywhere. It is a spiritual entity rooted in a specific geography.
And breaking that root breaks the entity.
It brings up a terrifying thought for a believer. Imagine dying on Mars knowing that you are buried in the wrong soil, facing the wrong way, or no way at all, and wondering if the call to resurrection will even reach you there.
That is the fear the proposer is tapping into. The fear of spiritual abandonment in the void. 3-second pause.
This has been intense. We started with vectors and geometry, moved through relativity and time lag, and ended up with the nature of the soul and resurrection.
It's a very comprehensive takedown of the space dream.
It really is. It doesn't leave many stones unturned. It attacks the problem from math, physics, law, and philosophy.
So where does the proposer leave us? What is the final verdict? Is there any hope for the Muslim astronaut?
Is there any workaround they accept?
The synthesis is pretty clear. The proposer concludes that Islamic ritual and jurisprudence are perfectly optimized for Earth's physical characteristics.
Optimized. That's a great word for it. Like software that only runs on one specific operating system.
Exactly. Islam is Earth OS software, and you can't just patch it.
So the hard line is that any attempt to justify space colonization with workarounds
Like the certified documents for Mecca or the relativistic prayer times.
is just sophistry. It's fake.
It's fake. So the verdict is, don't go.
The verdict is that logical consistency demands an assertion. Muslims cannot venture into outer space or migrate to other planets while maintaining their faith.
To go is to destroy the pillars of faith. It presents a binary choice.
You can have space travel or you can have Islam.
You cannot have both.
It's a fascinating, if restrictive, perspective. It really forces you to think about how much of our culture, our philosophy, our religion is implicitly assumed to be terrestrial?
We assume our values are universal, but are they just planetary?
That is the big question this text leaves us with. If a faith, or any human system, is inextricably bound to the geography and physics of one specific rock floating in space.
What does that say about the universality of the human experience? As we stand on the brink of becoming a multiplanetary species, we might find that some of our most deeply held beliefs just don't travel well.
They aren't luggage we can bring with us.
No.
It definitely changes how I look at those Mars colonization renders. It's not just about building the habitat, it's about what parts of us we have to leave behind.
It makes you wonder if we are physically capable of leaving, but spiritually grounded here forever.
A profound thought. The gravity of Earth holds our bodies.
But perhaps the gravity of faith holds our souls even tighter.
Something to mull over the next time you look up at the stars. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It was a pleasure.
See you next time.